Hello, people. I'm going to be doing an interesting interview today. When we first started the show here, Ball Sicilian and I did an interview with Gunner Allen Nelson. They already also gave him time served, so he didn't do that much time at all. So uh, he was accused of a cousin also of being involved in the death of Jimmy Hoffa. Um, no one knows. Everybody, there's so many people about Jimmy Hoffa. We'll talk to Gunner about that and see what his feelings are about that. But it would make sense. I mean, this was the Detroit Mafia. Jimmy Hoffa was from the area. So we'll talk about that also. And also, we'll talk about Gunner about some of the stuff that he's doing with his site. And we'll take it from there. Gunner, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Well, yeah, I want to, last time you were here, totally unprepared for you. And so that's why I'm looking forward to this, have a more intelligent interview with you. And I wanted to, basically, one of the things that we were talking about is there was a statement made about Jack Tocco. And how are you related to Jack Tocco exactly?
Jack Tocco is a cousin, but I just knew him as an uncle. He's much older than me. He's, it's my uncle, my grandfather's Gumbati. They grew up together in the same neighborhood in the same era, and my grandfather was his older cousin by like 10 years. So they always kind of looked up to my grandpa as an older kind of wise older guy and street guy. But anyways, he was a cousin, but he was just Uncle Jack. I met him a lot of times. I wasn't close to him at all. I've only did one thing directly for him, which was a big thing. And I've talked about it on my show. Collected over $1 million, $1.7 million over 3 days from all these bookies and Shylocks because he had a business, some kind of business deal going on the East Coast. I think it was Boston. It could have been Baltimore, start with a B. And basically, Tony Jack said, listen, boss, just got to collect all this money off the street. You and Johnny Fats and a couple other guys are out there, get out there and get it, be busy. So I brought it to him, and that's actually a good story because when I was arrested for the cases that sent me to prison for 13 to 50 years, that wasn't even an hour after I was arrested, the FBI came and saw me, and they're the first ones that came in, and they sat me down in this room. There was only one of them, wasn't like a good cop, bad cop thing. Fat guy with a mustache, basically all I remember of him. He started asking me questions about characters, like my Uncle Jack Tocco and Tony Zarelli, not Tony Zarelli, but Tony Giacalone. And so one of the things he did was pull out some pictures and says, first he asked me about a couple of murders. And I claimed I know nothing. And he says, well, this one murder, which again, Johnny Fat, you were seen with before. And I've already seen the video because it came from like a strip mall camera. And they showed it to me, and I'm like, yeah, we had lunch together. And then, as you see in the video, when we walk out, I went one way and he went the other way. So he was convicted of two murders that were 40 minutes after that happened. But at the time when I was arrested, he wasn't convicted. So he was actually in prison or in jail fighting the case, the murder case. They asked me about that. Then they asked me they showed me a picture of myself walking into this, the Hazel Park Racetrack. So I don't know if you know what the Hazel Park Racetrack is, but it's a famous, horse betting racetrack in Hazel Park, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. It's owned by Jack Tocco and his cousin. It was given to him as a gift when they graduated college. Both of them went to college, by the way, got business degrees from Wayne State, where my father graduated. And as a gift, he gave this Uno Zarelli, the old man, the Don before, and his first cousin, William Tocco, gave this Hazel Park Racetrack to his kids. So it was always kind of their like de facto headquarters, but they weren't there much. I was, but they weren't there that often. You didn't see them that often. There's an office in the basement. All the bookies and all the Shylocks in town hung out there. It was kind of ground zero. Like if I needed to make money, I would go there to the bookies and say, got any runners, people who aren't paying. And they'd be like, yeah, this and give me address and names, and I go find them. And if I got the money, I get a percentage. Kind of what I did as a hustle. I also put money on the street there. Like as soon as I got out of jail several times, I went to Tony Jack, said, I need $5,000, 2 points. I'll pay you in a month. He's like, yeah, no problem. I'd go straight to the track, find these degenerate gamblers, and they would, I'd be like, I'd shock them the money out because they already owed everybody. So I'd be like, listen, I'll give you the money, 10 points a week. You got to pay back. So they would take the money, and then I would collect the money in front of these other bookies and loan sharks, which really pissed a lot of guys off. A lot of guys were always pissed about that because I was stepping on their toes. He was like, he's owed me for 4 months. You walk in here, give him some money, and he's paying you every week. I'm like, that has nothing to do with me, man. You got to take that up with him. Man, I gave him the money. I told him when he's got to pay, he's got to pay. So they were kind of scared of me in that regard. But anyways, I went to the track one day after I collected all this money. I told this story. It was a crazy story because it's the middle of winter. It was after the Super Bowl. And me and Johnny Fats were in this there's an apartment building owned by a wise guy, but they couldn't have anybody in this apartment for whatever reason. The heat was stuck all the way up, and he let us use it as a stash house. And we were in there counting money. Now I'm in there with this homicidal maniac, this dude, my cousin. He's a killer. I've seen him shoot guys. I mean, he's a bad guy, and they put me with him to get this money. And remember, we had like a shotgun leaning against the wall. We both have pistols on us, and we're counting all this money. The counting machine broke. So we ended up having to count it by hand. And then it kept coming up with different numbers, and we had to recount it, on and on and on. The whole apartment was covered in cash stacks of $10,000, the whole floor in the living room. And it's hot, like freaking 90 degrees in there. And then I was sweating bullets because we got all this freaking money. It's going to the boss. And my mind, I kept thinking, Johnny's going to freaking put a bullet in the back of my head when I'm not looking and take this freaking money and just go to like Belize or somewhere and just disappear forever. So after we get the money and I get it to Tony and he gets it to the boss. Well, actually, I brought it to the Hazel Park Racetrack, and Jack Tocco shows up. His bodyguard takes the money, and then his driver. And anyways, I asked Tony after, I said, why did they put me with this crazy mother effing Johnny Fats, man? I freaking was nervous wreck. And this is what he said. He says, Alonzo, they figure he's the only one crazier than you. They were worried about you running. Jack Tocco was worried about you taking the money and running. I said, get the frick out of here. Are you kidding me? So anyways, when I hand the money off inside of Hazel Park Racetrack, it's in a big black duffel bag. I walk in with it. Boom. The feds are in the parking lot taking pictures, right? So 10 minutes later, Jack Tocco and his driver come walking out. I jump in his Buick, and he freaking drives off. When they showed me a picture when I was arrested and said, what was in the bag? I'm like, thought real quick on my feet. I was like, sandwiches, man. They sent me to get Subway. Next, so you walked in with a bag of Subway sandwiches, but so-and-so walked out. I can't remember the guy's name, the driver dude. So-and-so walks out with the boss and the same bag. Because they originally said, we know what's in the money. I mean, know what's in the bag. And I was like, what bag? And he pulls out the picture and says, that bag. And in my mind, I was like, if you know, then I'm cooked. The moral of the story is Jack Tocco and I weren't really close. He kind of thought I was a knucklehead, which I was. He thought I was a punk. That's what I was. I was a young street punk thug. I was fighting all the time. He was very close with my grandfather, very close. So they were together a lot. He came over. They only lived like 3 blocks away. They grew up their whole life together. So we'd come over to the house, have dinner, coffee. There was these cookies my grandma used to make called regatta cookies. And he liked them. So when he'd come over, he'd like, want me to make you regatta? And he'd be, no, don't go out of your way. She'd make them, be done in 10 minutes. Here's some cookies. And they eat espresso and they talk. They'd speak in Sicilian. They go in the back room and talk. Sometimes if it was serious, they'd go in the basement and talk. But one day I showed up and didn't know he was there because, at this point, I wasn't living with my grandparents. I used to live with my grandparents for 11 years. But I had moved out on my own, and I might have still been with my dad, actually. I was like 17, 18 years old, and I lived with my dad for like 3 years. And I come pulling up in my Mustang. I just pimped out Mustang. It's all black with rims, big fat rims and tires on it, sound system in it. Boom, 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 boom. Like a punk. I pull up in the driveway, boom, 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 boom. Well, my grandpa, Jack Tocco, looked up out the window and see me, and I come walking in, and Jack Tocco says, well, here's the reason why he said it. Leading up to this, because he knows me really well. He's always asking about me. My grandparents are always talking about me. I'd been bonded out of jail, and that previously to that 6 months, probably 7 or 8 times. Driving on suspended license because I drove this car. All the cops in the neighborhood knew who I was. They pulled me over. I had suspended license, bad tags because I couldn't get tags because I had a suspended license, and yada yada yada. So when I got walking in that day, he goes, "Why don't you get rid of that fucking cop magnet, man?" He's saying, while you're at it, lose that gold chain. What do you think? You're a gangster rapper? It's literally says, lose that fucking car and lose that gold chain. You think you're a gangster rapper? I couldn't believe he said that to me, but he was right. So I literally sold that car like a couple days later, bought a station wagon. So now I could drive around the neighborhood, and not get pulled over. I was in this goofy ass station wagon. I had a Ninja, I had a crotch rocket bike, so it didn't matter if I, wanted to drive that. But other than that, I wasn't really close to the dude. We used to go swim in his pool. My mother.
Gunner, did they when they were questioning you, did they make you an offer to avoid your long sentence?
Of course, first thing they said, he literally said, this guy real calmly sits back and goes at the freaking like the arrest report that the police, they just arrested me. And he's going, "You're going to do a lot of time, man. You might die in prison. You're going to get at least 30 years." And I said, maybe. I was keeping it totally real and honest. I was dope sick. I just robbed the bank. I got caught. They beat my ass. 6 black cops cuffed me and beat the shit out of me after I was cuffed. Pistol whipped me, nightsticks, the whole thing, and we're yelling, "Why don't you shoot, white boy? Why don't you shoot? Whack, whack, whack!" And they're beating my ass. I'm dope sick. I didn't have any dope that day. I was a heroin addict at that point. It was just at the end of my run. That was just so far out there because I was addicted to drugs. I was living beyond my means. Now, make this perfectly clear for people who don't know, and I could show pictures. I have show pictures. I had a beautiful house. I had 2 houses. 3 cars, jet ski, 4-wheeler, snowmobile. I had all these toys, beautiful house, her fiance. I had money, even had a good job I started a business. So it wasn't like I was out there like that, but I got to the point where my girlfriend says, "Listen, it's bill day. You got to pay your bills." My girl would always split the bills. She wouldn't take my money. I tried to give her more than when I had money. Like, "Here you go. I'll pay those bills this month." She's like, "No." So one day she said, "It's bill day." I said, so I just kind of went on a crime spree over the next several days. And I had already robbed banks. I had already robbed dope dealers. And the problem is I burned all my bridges. I robbed all my dope dealers. I robbed everybody I knew had money. I screwed a bunch of people over. Just trying to rob Peter to pay Paul and do that. Then my main dope dealer, I did a show about this. I was selling heroin, pretty heavy weight, and making a bunch of money. And then my house got raided. My girlfriend's brother ratted on me. And I didn't get arrested for it. Didn't get arrested. They came to my house, raided it, took all this dope, 2.2 kilos, and then they said, "Come in and talk to us." So they wanted me to rat. I said, "Well, you got no case. The house is not in my name. I wasn't at the raid. There's no fingerprints on you. You have no hand-to-hand sale. All you got is some rat." He's like, "What rat?" I'm like, "My girlfriend's brother. I know it was him because he's the only one who's been in that house in the last 48 hours. And he's a rat. I already know he's a rat." His credibility, I said, is bad, horrible, because this is a guy that you guys have given money to buy dope in the house as a rat. And he went out the back door and stole your money, and you arrested him and charged him with larceny by trickery. So his credibility is worthless. You're never going to win this case. And he's like, maybe not. He's like, "Well, pending the lab results," he's like, "you're free." But anyways, everybody in the neighborhood, everybody knew about it. The house got raided because my neighbor, who's kind of connected to the neighborhood, this guy, a young dope dealer kid, saw it. He's the one who called my girlfriend and said, "Dude, your house is getting raided, man. They're tearing it up." They were coming out with stereos and everything. They had a Corvette in the driveway. Anyways, because of that, nobody would deal with me. Everybody thought I was either flipping or what. They figured I was ratting because I'm in the street. They figured I must be a rat if I'm still walking the street. I get busted with 2 kilos of heroin, but I knew they didn't have a case, so I didn't sweat it. But nobody wanted to deal with me. So now I'm on some renegade tip. I'm like, no, everybody kind of was like, "Whoa, Gunner's freaking, he's too hot to mess with." So now I'm out robbing and stealing and beating and doing all the stupid crap that ended up me in prison. So when the cops freaking, they busted me, after I robbed this bank, beat my ass. They put me in this back room. They fingerprinted me. And one of the most interesting things was while I was getting fingerprinted, man, I'm telling you, people won't believe this because they'll think I'm just aggrandizing it. But trust me, this is exactly what I said. After the cops beat the shit out of me, right? The whole time I'm in the back of this cop car on the way back to the station going, "I'm killing you, mother uppers. I'm going to kill you when I get out. I'm going to kill you. Going to kill you." So kill. And it wasn't even like, I'm not even sure those 2 cops were involved. Those 2 black cops, but they had like 10 cars, going back to the freaking police station. So I get in the back and they start fingerprinting me. So they uncuff me. I'm bleeding all over the place, bro. I had to go straight to emergency room after that. I had to get stitches. They beat the shit out of me. I had blood dripping all over the freaking place. They ripped my shirt off. And I surrendered too. That's the funny thing. I didn't even give them any resistance. And then once they cuffed me, they stomped me out like a bunch of. So I'm getting fingerprinted by the captain. I want to say his name was Jackson, and he says, hey, you're Pete Tocco's grandson, aren't you? I looked at him. I said, yeah. He's like, I'm like, how do you know? He's like, I know your uncle. I know all your guys. And he kind of gave me a message like, yeah, I know you guys. I know everybody, which probably meant he's on the payroll, I'm sure, at some point. Because I used to bribe cops all the time. One of my jobs was to deliver money every week to cops, you know. Anyways, as one of these, the main cop that I refer to as Urkel, the little one, when he came charging up to my arrest, I threw my gun and I said, I give up, you know. I was out of breath. I had nowhere to go. I was exhausted. It surrounded me. I'd gotten a freaking high-speed chase all through like 3 cities, crashed my car, and finally got out and ran. Had a freaking duffel bag full of money. There's a tracking device in the money. If I would have just freaking left the money, I could have got away with it. Anyways, he comes running up like he's Ray Lewis, this motherfucker. Just comes charging up and tries like he's going to tackle me. So I sidestep. Boom, he goes right by and lands in the snow. And he turns around, jumps up, and starts running at me again. I said, man, I give up, man. What? And he goes to tackle me, and I just go, I smash him on the ground. About that time, like 6 more cops just come running up and stomp me down. And then they arrest me. So the dude who, Mr. Ray Lewis, Urkel dude, when I'm in the precinct getting fingerprinted, he walks by. I said, hey, motherfucker, I see your badge. I see you. What's your name? I'm killing your bitch ass nigga and your family. I'm coming for your kids, motherfucker. I'm coming for your kids. I'm coming for you, man. And the captain's right there. He don't say nothing. And the dude won't look at me. The dude walks by and he's like, yeah, bitch, I'm coming for your kids, mother. I'm killing everybody you love. I ain't going to be in here forever. And then, again, the feds came in and I was all worked up. You know, I'm bleeding. Just beating up. The Fed came in and he said, you know, you're going to do 30 years, man, 30, 40, 50 years for all this, man. You're a bad guy. You got a lot of bad stuff. He said, this is what he said. Everybody wants a piece of you, man. I got the state boys out there. I got Oakland County, Wayne County, Macomb County, and we want you. Even the ATF was trying to get me. He says, so if you want to work with me, now's your chance, man. I can make this go away. And I said, yeah, how's that? And he says, you know, I said, no, I don't. He's like, okay. He says, tell me about Jack Tocco. Tell me about this person and that person. He starts rattling off names. And I'm like, my uncles, my cousins? I mean, yeah. He's like, what do you do with them? What were you doing with them? He's like, I can make this go away. I can make all them guys out there go away. You can go home tonight. And I said, man, you got the wrong guy, bro. And I puked. I was so like, you know, just between being sick and beaten and just scared and everything. I was just like, and I puked on the floor, and it like splashed on his shoe. And he kind of like wipes it out on the corner of the table. I said, "Man, you got the wrong guy, bro. I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing about nothing. I ain't saying nothing. Where's my lawyer? I need my lawyer." That's what I said. And he gave me his business card and whatever, and he says, "You're running out of time, man. You better say." I said, I took the card. I said, I'm not that guy. And I threw the card at him and it flipped through the air. And he said, all right, I can see you're one of the hard asses. Good luck. You're going to be gone a long freaking time. And then the county with the most charges came to jurisdiction, which was Macomb County. And they had like 17 capital crimes against me. And Oakland County had an extortion charge and Wayne County. I mean, it was all blur after that. I ended up with $5 million in bonds, but they tried to see if I would work with them. I said, no. In my mind, I made a decision before as I'm being arrested. In my mind, I'm getting beat up. I'm like, I'm going to die in prison because I'm not going to rat. So I'll just kill myself when I'm in prison. That was my thing. I already decided I won't dishonor my grandfather. I won't dishonor my grandmother. I won't dishonor anybody in my family. I will never disgrace the family. I'll die. I'll slit my wrists. I'll get some dope, take a bunch of dope, OD, whatever. I'll exhaust all my legal remedies for like 10 or 15 years or whatever, trying to appeal and whatever, but I'm not spending 30, 40 years in prison. I'd rather be dead. So, and I came to terms with that. I was willing to die. I'm not scared of it. You know, I've always been not scared to die. I've been shot in 6 different gunfights. I've been shot twice, hit with a baseball bat, stabbed. I'm never scared to die. If I got to go to prison and die, I die, but I'm not going to dishonor my grandfather, who I loved and revered. And turn into a rat and burn all his cousins and his family. That man wouldn't have been able to freaking go to church anymore. He wouldn't have been able to go to freaking the market anymore. Everybody would see him as, oh yeah, this is the grandfather of the freaking rat.
Let me ask you a question about Jack Tocco. Okay, I'm going to put up a picture of him. Now, he was the head of the family for Detroit for 30 years.
39 years.
And he was married for 60 years.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty incredible.
Yeah,
What I wanted to ask you is there was a podcaster that recently used Jack Tocco in the same sentence as rat. And what is your opinion of that?
I mean, listen, I'm not sure why, I'll say his name, but it's like, I don't, this is not a dig or an attack on Fat Bald Sicilian. In fact, I don't even like calling him Fat Bald Sicilian because I feel like that's calling somebody a name. You're fat. He's not that fat. But whatever. The reason he did that, I'll never know. I can speculate a couple of things that me and Scott Bernstein talk almost daily on the phone. Literally, he's one of my best friends. And one of the things that he said is like, Jack Tocco was able to not be convicted for 39 years. He did get convicted, and it almost looked bad because how does a guy, Tony LaPiana, who's the current underboss, has never been convicted of a crime? How are they doing this? And I told Scott, I said, this is how they do it, bro. They groom assets. They groom assets by paying for tuitions, college tuitions, and giving people money to start their businesses and making friends with certain powerful people. And they will help get them in a position of power. Judges, prosecutors. My own uncle, Salvatore Tocco, which I probably shouldn't say his name because my cousin might watch this, and he asked me not to say it. Sorry, I'm not going to say his name. Sorry, brother. I'm going to talk about your dad. He was groomed to be an IRS agent. It was Sal Tocco. And he got a job with the IRS, and that allowed him access to all the FBI database that was like all the FBI that are looking into the finances of all these mobsters in Detroit. He was able to access that, and he would work there for years. And I mean, he didn't work there forever. There was something happened where I think he got fired, and so because of that, maybe passing information on. I was pretty young at the time. I was maybe 12 years old or something. But what I'm saying is, they get judges in their pockets. They have the judge. When he got convicted of RICO, everybody, in the world thought, well, here he goes. He's going to get freaking life in prison, 50 years, whatever. He got a year and a day. Now, how the hell did that happen? And then they brought him back and did give him another 8-9 months. He used to write letters to my grandfather from prison. And my grandpa would read them to me. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yeah, Uncle Jack says this, that about, how it's easy in there. He said they could get women in there. He's like, they had no fences. You could literally walk and leave. They had these little work things where they go out for the day and come back. That's any food he wanted. He had in there. He was talking about how easy it was. And anyways, they brought him back and resentenced him. But to imply the guys that, so you make the implication that perhaps the only way a guy can maintain that position for 39 years and not go to prison is that maybe he's a rat. The problem is, if he did rat, there would be a record of it. All right, like Joe Messina, for example. And who's the boss going to tell on? That's what me and Scott said. Like, if you're the boss of it all, who are you going to tell on? They want you. Like when they did Gotti, they wanted Gotti. I mean, so then who's he going to tell on? The people below him? Maybe like Messino did, I guess. But there would be a record. There would be a 302s, and there would be a whole record of the people he cooperated in. It'd be out there. It'd be all out there. There's nothing. There was never nothing. No. And as much as I didn't know the guy that well, I can tell you he was a man of honor. That's what pisses me off when people say something like that out of ignorance, because here's a man, a true Don, okay, was the boss of Detroit for 39 years, ran a tight ship, the FBI believed he was worth $100 million when he died. He had raised 9 kids. Some of them, may have been involved or may be still. Some of them, they're all successful. He has a couple of doctors. One's an eye doctor. They're all very successful. Rosalie, his wife, is still alive. My friend, Matt Simoncini, lives right down the street from her. Sees her all the time. He's talked to her about me. He did it right, though. What I'm saying is he got all the judges in his pocket and prosecutors. And then the media. That's the other thing. The dude freaking basically blackmailed the media. When one of the guys would get busted, they go in front of a judge. They get the venue changed to one of our judges. I know this because it happened to me twice. Twice, my grandpa got me in front of one of our judges. Not Coretti, but it was Coretti. Excuse me, Coretti was the judge, and his real name was he went by Correct, but his real name was Coretti, and he was the family's judge. If you get the venue changed to his bench, he'd find a technicality or some way to get you thrown out, and he did it with me twice. So they have these judges in their pocket, and they have the media. What happens is when a guy got busted, the media would want to go, oh, mob guy busted in Detroit for extortion or this or robbery or whatever. The media would like cover it. If they did, Jack Tocco would send word via emissaries and say, don't print anything more about this. Don't cover it. Don't nothing. Because if you don't want union trouble at your paper, he did it once. I know for a fact, but I don't know how many times he did it, but I know once for a fact that he had them shut down. The unions went on strike. The newspaper stopped printing, and that was the end of it. And they lost millions and millions of dollars in ad revenue. And it's the same thing with the broadcast, the local TV. They wouldn't cover the mob. They wouldn't talk about the mob because he had so many powerful friends in business in the city that if he said, listen, don't advertise on Fox Channel 4 anymore, just say you're done advertising when I'm paying for these commercials. Don't do it no more. And he did it. So they would stop. So now they don't cover him. They don't cover nothing to do with him. He sued anybody in the world that tried to imply he was a mob boss for 30 years. He sued him. But after he got busted, then they could say it. But until he got busted.
To me, the biggest thing is, well, when he got out of jail, and this is why I don't believe, out of prison, this is why I don't believe he snitched, is what the first thing they wanted to do is add to his sentence. So if he had any type of deal, they wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah, there's no deal. If there was a deal beyond record. That's the thing.
And another thing, well, I want to bring up another thing. There was a Joe Zarelli, and not the original Joe Zarelli, a cousin, that came out recently and made the statement that Jimmy Hoffa was killed at the order of Jack Tocco. And I checked that out, and Jack Tocco wasn't in charge of the film at the time when he disappeared. Jack Tocco didn't take over in 1979. Hoffa disappeared in 75. Do you think that possibly Jack Tocco was behind that?
Jack Tocco was the acting boss at the time, not technically the boss, but he was the acting boss. So the boss, Uno Zarelli, was retired and living in Florida. Jack Tocco was running the show. And here's the thing. There's going to be so much contention and argument over this. It's ridiculous. But I will tell you this. Jack Tocco made the call. He signed off on it. There's no way anybody was going to do anything in Detroit unless he signed off. He signed off, and he assigned his most dangerous, most proficient killers, which is Tony Giacalone, Billy Giacalone, and a couple other guys. Another one of my uncles, Tony Pal. It's my grandmother's cousin, first cousin. But anyways, this entire thing was planned by Detroit. That's the biggest issue that people don't realize. Is that
exactly
Detroit had the biggest hand in the game, and they did such a good job at covering that up. Here we are 40 some years later. Detroit had something to do with it. Dude, listen, let me make this perfectly clear to all the listeners who don't understand how Hoffa became Hoffa. Two mob dudes in Detroit, I can't remember the name. Hoffa was a teamster coming up in the unions. They liked him, but they knew he was malleable. They could, mold him. So they bring him in to the mob. He liked it. He wanted to be with them. They bring him in. They're telling the other unions to get behind the teamsters, Jimmy Hoffa, and they build him up to be something. Then when he got to be in charge, they said, listen, you control this teamster pension fund. We want you to give us money, loans, some of it at zero interest, so we can build these casinos. So what he does is he gives the Detroit mob enough money to build 4 casinos, 3 in Vegas and 1 in like Laughlin or some crap. And Frontier was one of them. So he finances this, right? What happens is Tony Zarelli, which is Uno Zarelli's son, gets busted. He was the first mobster to get busted in Las Vegas for skimming $4 million. He gets busted for skimming $4 million, which really humiliates his father because at the time, Tony was actually the boss, acting boss. So Uno had retired, named his son the acting boss, and then the acting boss, Tony, gets busted doing the skim. Really humiliates the family. Keep in mind, Uno Zarelli's on the commission. He's a member of the commission. There's tons of FBI reports and journals and wiretaps to confirm that. So look him up. Anyways, so now he's so humiliated by his son, he comes back to Detroit from Florida and says, listen, now his son's in prison. His son goes to prison for 4 years. So while he's in prison, he says, this is when he says to Jack Tocco, his nephew, I'm naming you the boss. You do what you want with the family, but you're the boss. End of story. Now, at the time, William Black Bill Tocco was still alive. That was Uno Zarelli's right-hand man, best friend. They started the whole thing together.
Yeah.
So Jack Tocco now is the acting boss while Tony's in prison. Now, Tony's in prison for a couple of years. He gets out of prison, and as a olive branch to his cousin, who's very slighted, very angry that he's no longer the boss, that his father decided to give his cousin the family. So Jack Tocco says, listen, man, you're my underboss. You'll be my underboss. And he kind of accepted that. He says, I'll give you autonomy. You can run your crew however you want to do it, yada, 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 and kind of let him go. And that's the reason why I didn't really know Tony Zarelli all that well, because his faction of the family was almost separate, to be honest with you. He ran his own crew. He had this crew of misfits, kind of these duncy mother effing misfits. And anyways, there was a lot of contention over this. Jack Tocco, Tony Zarelli came to hate and kind of resent his cousin for being the boss instead of him. And they had this rift, and it got worse and worse and worse. The whole 70s, it was bad. When Jack Tocco had his anniversary party, he didn't show up, didn't go to his kids' weddings. It was really pretty freaking bad. Later on, when they were 80 years old, they almost get in a fist fight over something. Because this is after Tony Zarelli's crew gets busted and causes this RICO to come down on Jack Tocco. What happens is Paul Corrado and some other guys were on Nove Tocco were on a wire, and they were talking about family business. His car was wired up. They actually wired his car while they were running a dice game at Luciano's, where you may have seen. I go to eat at Luciano's all the time. In fact, I owe the guy $1,000. It's a long story, but they were in there running a dice game. And the feds went in Paul Corrado's car and wired it up. And they were getting in the car with Tony Zarelli and talking about all this family business, the politics, the people who don't know the whole story with Taco Bowman, the outlaw biker that they wanted to kill. And they had put a $750,000 contract on Taco Bowman's head, this outlaw biker who thought he could muscle the mob out of some poker games and some drugs. And so he tried to set up a couple mob guys, but the mob guy that was involved to help him, it was double agent. That guy's name is Dego Tone, Antonio Cirillo. I was in prison with this guy for 4.5 years. This guy, we talked every day. He speaks Sicilian, so we speak is very broken. He sounded like my grandfather, and we talked. He told me so much stuff about the family. I told him a lot of stuff. So because I knew so much, he was able to open up and tell me. He told me that because he killed these dudes that were supposed to be setting up Taco Bowman, he left a woman alive. He wouldn't kill the woman, and the woman ended up testifying. He's the only murderer that's ever convicted of a murder. Guy, a wise guy, made dude, got convicted of murder. Two guys, only one ever in the history of Detroit. So, moral of the story is, what happened is after this bust, they call it game tax, Operation Game Tax, and they arrest 12 heads of the Detroit family, right, including Jack Tocco. My friend Frank Witcher was one of them. He just died. Anyways, he was so mad. Jack Tocco was so mad because he heard the freaking wiretaps, and he heard these guys saying, "Oh, that's some bullshit. What Jack's doing," or freaking, he referred to them as whoever. That's some bullshit. How they're doing us. They want to use us as little bitches to kill Taco Bowman. Whatever. Because Jackie the Kid was the one who got into it with Taco Bowman. Jackie's now the current boss, allegedly. And so he was using them. Why wouldn't they use them? You work for me. You're under me. If I'm the boss or street boss, who at the time, Jackie was a street boss, because his uncle Tony had died. So Jackie took over as street boss. And I need you to go kill somebody. It's not chicanery. It's just an order. Go do it. And they didn't want to do it. They were trying to plan it, whatever. It was all on the mic. They got it all recorded, right? So after, Jack Tocco gets out on bond, and he's fighting his case, he basically strips Tony Zarelli of his stripes. Says, that's it. You're off. You're shelved. Nothing. Take away all his rackets, take away all his earning capability, took away all his money. They even stole his safe, man. He had a safe in his house with God knows how much money and jewelry and stuff. While he was at court one day, guys went in there and stole this guy's safe, stripped him of everything. So he had this one guy who was like a young up-and-coming guy from my era, his bodyguard named Jerry the Blade Bianchetti. I knew the guy because his cousin was one of my combati's, one of my best friends. And but I didn't really know him close because of that. I just know who he was. and they got in a fight. So Tony Zarelli goes to his house. He's got his bodyguard there with him, the Blade. They call him the Blade. He stabs guys, and they get in an argument, a pushing match. Two old freaking geriatric mother effers are like getting a pushing match in front of Jack Tocco's mansion on Middlesex, and Gino tried to break it up, and that. So at that point, I think is right after that, Tony ends up go to prison, and for a couple years, and then Jack Tocco wanted to basically eliminate all people who supported Tony. So they killed him. They set him up, blew his head off, and so Tony Zarelli was basically shelved, and because of that, so he was cut out. The only rat there is in history in Detroit of a made guy is Nove Tocco, who, believe it or not, is a distant cousin of mine and Jack Tocco's, but it's like a different family. He wasn't even part of Jack Tocco family. He was Tony Zarelli's done. And when somebody told me that he was a freaking made guy, I kind of laughed, man. I think it was at a funeral. My Uncle Sal told me, you know, he's freaking a friend of ours or whatever. I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, this guy's such a wannabe poser. You know what I'm saying? He was like, there wasn't a lot of guys in Detroit family who like projected, hey, I'm in the mob. Look at me. I'm a mobster. You better be scared of me. Nobody did that, man. It's not like other places.
And this Nova guy did testify against Jack Tocco. Is that
Nova?
correct?
Yeah. So, and I remember seeing him again in the market after I was told he was a made guy, a friend of ours. And Eastern Market is like Detroit's Little Italy. It's basically, it's what it is. It's a section of downtown Detroit. It's all Italian, warehouses, food, produce business. My family had a produce business called Tocco Produce there. And I spent a lot of time there, like half my freaking life there. And you'd see all the Dagos come there every day. Like, if you stay down there in the warehouse for a couple of days, basically every wise guy in town is going to swing by and say hi. Hey, somebody, how you doing? You know, you give them some free produce. They bring you a gift, so whatever. And that's it. I saw Nova, and I'm watching the guy. And he was just like trying so hard to act like a freaking tough guy. And I'm like, this guy's a freaking poser. I think he's a freaking bitch, really. And sure enough, later on, he gets busted and he flips. And the worst part is he ended up putting his boy away for 12 years. Paul Corrado, who I knew too, was a good dude, put his boy away. And that's a whole nother freaking story, that they almost killed him because he almost agreed to wire up against some black dude the cops wanted real bad for dope dealing. And this is while Tony Giacaloni's in prison. And he said, mother effer, you freaking wire up against anyone, you're dead. Just for even suggesting that he might wire up against Paul was like, yeah, it's not family, it's nobody, it's some black dude. Tony Giacaloni's like, Tony Giacaloni liked the blacks. He liked them. He had blacks like capos for him. He had a bunch of black dudes on the street that worked for him. Big ones. Like, look up Frank Nitty Usher. If you want to look up some crazy ass stories, look up Frank Nitty Usher, Tony Giacaloni. His original black mafia family was Frank Usher, like BMF, the original one. And then BMF came after with Big Meech after that. But anyways, so they didn't kill him, but they were going to. I was told that they actually had a hit on him on the yard, and it was going to happen. And at the last minute, somebody called it off from the street and said, leave him alone. I think Dago Tone, yeah, he was the one who was going to kill him. The guy was in prison with. He was they would give it to him. And then he's like, next thing you know, they tell me, don't do it. He's like, man, I was like freaking 1 day away from plugging this mother effer. And they called me and they didn't. I think it was Frank Bomarito is the one gave the word, leave Paulie alone, let him ride. So anyways, freaking, there is the one rat, Nove Tocco, flipped. But there's no evidence anywhere of anyone flipping, man. I guess that's what makes.
And I've done a ton of research. That's exactly what I came up with. Well, I'm going to change the subject a little bit. Okay, so basically, Jack Tocco, you're saying he didn't. That's BS. And
of course.
Okay, and I want to talk to you about another thing. Now, one thing I really respect about you, Gunner, there was a lot of negativity about people speaking about Larry Mazza and stuff like that. And I know that he's a friend of yours,
Sure.
and you've always been very loyal to him. And I had a couple people that grew up in the neighborhood with Larry Mazza, older guys, and telling me that, yes, he is actually made, BS to people saying that he's not made. And these guys that have told me that one is connected to one family, and he's just an old retired gentleman. And then I also heard it from another person, and I'm starting to believe that Larry Mazza is made. And I can't understand why all these people are coming out saying that he's not made. What is your opinion about that?
That's absurd, man. Listen, it's funny. I don't know why they would hate on Larry. And Larry is not the type of guy who's ever going to lie, might make stuff up. It's not him. I know him well. I've known him for 5 years. He's a good dude. A great guy, stand-up guy. And he admitted that when during the war, they, typically they don't make guys during the war. But when you have a family that's split into two factions, then the faction needs soldiers. They need made guys. They can, it's called Mustang the guy, where it's kind of a fast track to being made. Larry was a killer. He already killed for the family. He killed Dick Arena or whatever. He shot other guys. He'd been with Greg Scarpa for freaking 15 years, 20 years, whatever it was. He put in mad work. He was a big earner. Anybody who says Larry's not a made guy is just goofy. You're never going to find proof of that anywhere. You probably can't find proof that he is, but how many guys can you find proof of? All these guys that say they're made, were they really made? How do we know? Well, same way you don't know Larry. But Larry tells a story, and he's honest. He said they brought him in. It was kind of a fast track. They gave him a freaking, an oath and burned a saint and, whatever, did the whole thing really quick and said, okay, you're a friend of ours officially. And when he said that, he said, one of the guys who was there said, once after the war is over and we bring these guys back to us, we may have to do this again because they may not respect or they may not honor your making ceremony because they didn't have a representative there. That's what they told them. So you get the family comes back together and they're like, well, when we made Larry, I'm like, well, we didn't have a representative there. We didn't make Larry. So they said, you may have to do this again. Larry never thought first after that, he forgot about it. He's like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But Larry, he's not a lying kind of guy. I mean, the guy's a straight shooting, honest dude. He's not a bullshitter, a con artist, nothing. He don't care, man. He just tells the story how it is. If you like it, you like it. If you believe it, you believe it. If you don't, you don't. Larry's a freaking solid dude. And I'm not condoning ratting on any level, but I try to empathize with people as to why they did, and what made them do that. And like for me, again, I wouldn't do it because I didn't want to dishonor my grandfather. That was it, and my grandmother, and my whole family. That would have killed me. It would have broke them and killed me. I couldn't do it. But Larry, after he found out that his mentor, the guy he looked up to most in life, Greg Scarpa, he was like his father, really. It turned out that he was a rat. And that broke Larry, man. It broke him. He's like, what? All this stuff has been fake? All this stuff has been bullshit? The whole thing? Even Little Alley Boy and stuff admitted he knew Greg was a rat. That's crazy. So he's like, and then they come to him and say, listen, if you testify against this Fed, that this Fed was giving information to Greg Scarpa about his enemies, the whereabouts of his enemies, how they'd even pull off police protection. Here's your enemy. We're going to pull off surveillance. Go kill him. And Greg would say, come on. And he has a scanner with his own channel and everything. And they would tell him where the guy's at. Oh, he's right now. They just walked in so-and-so. Well, that was all coming from a Fed, a bad, dirty Fed, a bad FBI agent who was trying to keep Greg Scarpa on the street because it was his full-time job to monitor this guy. He was like a freaking superhero in the FBI building down in New York. Like, you got Greg Scarpa on the line. You got a freaking whale. You've had a whale on the line for 18 years or whatever it was. So, I mean, he wanted to keep this going and made him famous in the FBI. So they helped him get away with these murders. Well, and then that's when Larry said, yeah, I had no oath. I swore no oath to the freaking FBI. I mean, I owe them nothing. I'll help you with the FBI. And he went on the stand. He took the stand, and they tried to convict the FBI agent, and they found not guilty. The guy was doing his job, they said, and blah, 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 blah. Anyways, that's how Larry, he didn't go into witness protection. He got a sentence reduction from 20 years for the murders down to 10 years. So he did his 10 years, and he walked out. And he wrote a book, went in there about his whole story, and that's his life. And that's why the book's called The Life. I mean, there's not a lot there to contend. I don't know why people want to just make up. Let me make this clear. Some low-level associate from another family is never going to know what is happening with high-level captains, capos, and bosses in another family. Ever. Never. And when anybody makes that claim, they sound ridiculous, all right? But some people are like these big mob groupies, man. And,
Exactly.
and what they do is they aggregate every little piece of information they can find. They know every name. Like some grow up like mob groupies. Like that guy's a mob. I'll ride his dick. That guy's a mob. I'll ride his dick. I'll give him a massage. I'll run his errand. I'll get this thing. I'll get yeah. They'll smack him around. It's funny. He smacked me. You guys said. I mean, some of these guys are so dick riding on these wise guys. The wise guys abuse them and use them like little bitches. That's what they do. And so they come up doing that, and they think that someday I'm going to be one of them, but they never get made or never get in because the wise guys see him as weak. Man, you've been riding dick forever. Where I come from, I'm going to tell you why these old mob guys like me, man. I'm going to tell you why. In my family, I never rode their dicks, bro. I mean, I didn't have this awe of the mafia. I grew up in and around it, meaning they were at my house eating dinner, drinking coffee, laughing, watching football, giving me $20 bills every time they see me. I'd be with them in the market. I'd be with them at home. I mean, I knew my family was different by the time I could even register. Like I said, I couldn't go to one day. There's this girl I had a crush on. I was like 5 years old, had a birthday party, and she didn't invite me. And I felt really, her name is not Jackie, because that's the other girl that I like. But anyways, I said, why couldn't I come to your party? She says, my mom said you're in the mafia. So what is the mafia? I don't know what the frick the mafia is. Again, another kid who I was liked and was playing with on down the block a couple years later, same thing. He said, I can't play with you anymore. I said, well, why? He said, my parents say you're in the mafia. So I don't even know what the frick does that even mean. But I started paying attention and watching how people treat my uncle, my grandfather, and my family, and my mother and my grandmother. I started watching and noticing people treat them different. Like they won't take their money. There was a corner store that me and my little friends when I was a little kid would go on. A guy named Gus owns it. That's what made a scene in my book, like inspired by this. And Gus was an old Greek guy. He lived right next door to the place. And he had a bunch of good looking daughters. And I'd go in there with my friends. We'd all want to buy some candy and ice cream and stuff like that. And I'd order up what I wanted, put it on the counter. And I'd say, how much? He says, oh, no, Alonzo. No. This is for you. Tell your papa I said hi. Tell your grandmother I said hi. And in fact, here, grab this. And he'd go in the cooler and he'd grab some meat or something out of the cooler thing. He's like, here, take this for your grandmother. Tell her I said hi. And nobody else got that treatment. And that's what would happen when I was in the market. When I go to the market with my uncle, my uncle was 12 years older than me, my mother's brother. He saw me as like a little brother. He schooled me on all the things mafia. Once I started asking, when I was like 12, 13 years old, what the frick is this, man? He says, at first, he's like, it's our family. You'll find out later. You'll understand. Like, what the frick was it? So we would go to the market with him. He's a wise guy, dressed real sharp, gold chain, Sometimes he'd wear like, track suits and stuff like that. And everybody see him like, hey, good body, P, how you doing? They shake his hand with two hands. How you doing, P? Good to see you, man. Listen, come in here. Let me give you something, man. They bring him back. They might sell meat. They might sell produce. They might say this. They sell that. Whatever it was. Come in the back. And he bring him a box. He says, this is for you. Tell your pop. Blah, blah. It happened everywhere, wherever we went. And my uncle was really cool about it. He's like, thanks for buying. Thank you. And we go to the next, vendor. Couple doors down, and he see another guy. Hey, P, how you doing? And no matter how often we went, it was always that. Hey, P, how you doing, paisan? Give him a hug. Kiss him. We kiss. Sicilians always kiss right here. And so I'm watching this, but nobody else is getting that treatment. Some guys for sure, but there were other like mob dudes. But regular Joes would walk in and wouldn't get nothing like that. So I'm watching this, thinking we're different, And eventually, as I got older, my Uncle Pete started kind of schooling me to the game and who's who. And that's when I'm like, this man, old fat mother effer, man, he's the freaking boss. He's a capo, or not the boss, but he's a captain. I never saw him as anything but old uncles. So as I became a teenager, when I went to jail. It's a good story if you want to listen to it. Real good story. Because a lot of people probably never heard this. I went to jail when I got busted at 17 for selling steroids. It was a big deal. It was a big bust. $8,000 worth of steroids. It's kind of a big deal for me. And the day I got arrested, my Uncle Sal came and bonded me out of I was in the county jail. And we were driving back in his car. And he's very mad. I could tell he was breathing heavy. He wouldn't talk to me. I said, does Grandpa know? And he looks at me. He goes, of course he knows. He says, going to see the judge tomorrow. I said, what's he going to do? And he says, don't worry about it. I'll handle it. And I said, because they had warned me about selling drugs. And he said that. We told you don't sell drugs. We told you. What are you doing? I'm like, it's only steroids. He's like, look what happened. You got freaking snitched out. Yeah, I was just trying to make some money, you know. He's like, you know, he says, if you need to make money, come to me. Come to your Uncle Pete. Or come to Uncle Tony, whatever. We'll put you to work. They always got something. Like, whatever. I was trying to get this money. So my grandfather, the very next day, goes to meet the judge, the head of the circuit court judges, Judge Coretti, and hands him $10,000 in cash and says, I don't want my grandson to go to jail. Now, keep in mind, I'm living with my grandparents. Before this happened, I was living with my cousin Dino and my cousin Joe. We had our own house on 7 Mile in Detroit, which was party central. They were like 22. I was like 17. And I lived in the basement, elevator. So many girls, 3 bodybuilders. All 3 of us were like workout, musclehead, Jersey Shore. It looked like Jersey Shore in there all day, every day. All we did is work out, train, sell drugs, and hustle, on the street, play on the beach, whatever. And then I got busted for the steroids, and I ended up having to go away. I ended up getting 6 months in the county jail work release for all these steroids. But I got kicked off of work release for punching a guy in the mouth. Some big black dude sits down across the table from me. He says, let me have that cookie. I'm like, I'm eating my cookie, bro. He's like, let me get that cookie, bro. I said, no, I'm eating my cookie. He reaches over the table, grabs my cookie. I dive over the counter, and punch him in the mouth, and we start fighting on the ground. Bang. Well, I got kicked between that, and I doctored up my schedule one day because I worked at a GNC in the Eastland Mall. And I told them I worked this one day, but I really was just going to get some pussy for my girl. And they usually didn't, they called maybe once a week, but it just so happened they called on that day to see if I was there. And they're like, no, he ain't working today. So when I come back, and I'll go to the jail, and they're like, listen, man. I said, man, listen, I was confused. I thought I worked today. And since I was out there, I just figured I'd go see my girlfriend for lunch or whatever. That's your one warning. Next time you go to the tower, it means just doing your time. So the next time was when I punched a guy in the face and I went to the tower. They put me in the county jail for 6 months, but my girlfriend paid a lawyer to give me a time cut. And we got in front of the judge. We got a time cut. So I was only in there for like 3 months and 3 weeks. And then I get out and I want to live with my grandparents. And I could have went and lived with Dino and Joe again. That was fun, but it was too much partying and too much like chaos. I wanted to live with my grandparents. My grandmother does my laundry. My grandmother cooks for me. It's all paid for. It's a beautiful house in Grosse Pointe. I mean, I wanted to live there. And I told them that. Well, we were writing letters, They came and saw me too. And so I get picked up and they take me to my grandparents' house. And now I'm living with my grandparents, right? In Grosse Pointe. Beautiful house, feed me like a king, treat me like a king. And around this time, so my grandpa gets me a job bouncing at a really hot nightclub, right? He knows the owner, this little dude named Al something other. Al, I can never remember his name. It's a little weird dude, old dude. But my grandpa says, can you give my grandson a job, Alonzo? And said, yeah. They made me the head bouncer. So now I'm 19 years old and I'm the head bouncer because that's how long it took to convict me and go to jail from 17 to 19 years old on steroid thing. So I'm the head bouncer at this freaking nightclub. What I don't know until I start bouncing there is that it's basically ground zero for the mob. It's only about a mile from Grosse Pointe, Michigan, which is the wealthiest city in Michigan. And some argue the wealthiest and most expensive real estate in the country, more than Malibu. Very, very expensive. High rollers, all billionaires down right on the lake. Big mansions on the lake, Art Van and Ford, William Clay Ford and crap, right down the road. And so all these high rolling mob dudes, they come out of St. Clair Shores or Grosse Pointe. They come to this club. And they hang out. It's like an older crowd. So the average age there was probably like 30, where a lot of clubs are, younger. This is like all these high rolling OG, triple OGs. You could park your boat, right? There's a dock. They had the biggest deck in Michigan, they claim. And it was like a 4,000 square foot, 2-level deck and wraps around a lagoon. And then there's a marina back there. So everybody, high rollers, pull up in their freaking $1 million race boats and they pull up and they have valet parkers on the dock. You throw them a rope, they park your boat. The badder to the boat, the closer you get to the front. If you got a badass mother ever, they park you right in the front. And you can like party on it while you're at the club. They bring beer and drinks right to your boat, hang out. So I'm bouncing there, and all these freaking wise guys are coming every night. And they're getting to know me. And they're like, hey, Alonzo, what's up? They know who I am. They're very aware of who I am. They know exactly who I am. They introduced me to their friends as Al Tocco. And I correct them. I'm like, well, my name's actually Lindbloom, but he's like, yeah, I know your cousin. You're Tocco. That's literally what they say. And they would come in and kiss me on my cheek every time. Come in, kiss me. Hey, Alonzo, how you doing, Paisan? Kiss me on the cheek. And then they say, and so I got to a point where all my little young cousins that were like 16, 17, 18 years old, they wanted to get in the club. And so they would rent a limo and play the role. They would all suit up and get all slicked out, and then they pull up in a freaking limo because they didn't want to drink and drive. They wanted to be able to party and do what they want. And they all chip in $30. They get a limo. The limo pulls up, outpours all these freaking mob royalty. It's all mob royalty, like young, wise guys, little gangsters. And they all know, everybody knows their names, knows who they are, where they live and they're from. Everybody around there knows who they are. I'm not even going to say their names. Some of them probably will watch this show, and they'll remember this. They're like, yeah, we're glad you didn't use my name. They pile out, and they walk up, and they'd all give me a hug and a kiss. And I'd let them in. Even though they're 16, 17 years old, I can't say you guys can't come in. And they knew that. So I let them in. And they go in this club and drink and party and hang out. And nobody said nothing that worked there. They knew. There was high rollers and like famous people all the time. And Rob Probert was there. Cecil Fielder there. Just a bunch of like professional athletes. And anyways, the more where I'm going with this is I started getting in with these mob guys, right? Not the higher administration was not going to a nightclub. They're old. They're 60, 70 years old. But these younger guys, either like my generation up to maybe 50 or 60, would come in there and hang out and be seen. They'd smoke cigars, drink, they get a table out on the deck, and they laugh. I could name so many freaking names. I could go off right now and name 20 names. But they got to know me and like me and started using me for errands and stuff like that. What happened was Tony Giacalone. So if you don't know who Tony Giacalone is, this guy is one of the baddest mother mob dudes you'll ever in the history of ever. Google him up. Tony Giacalone. This guy, they believe he was responsible for up to 60 bodies. The coldest-blooded gangster that I ever knew. Cold. So his daughter married my cousin. I'm not going to say his name either. But anyways, that's how. But he had always been close to my grandpa. But his daughter married my cousin. That's me.
Yeah, I know. I'm showing it. Just to give an idea. You're bouncing. I'm giving that.
Yeah, see if you can find Tony Giacalone. No, Giacalone, Giacalone. But so Tony Jack was with my grandpa a lot because my grandpa was a layoff bookie, a big layoff bookie. And Tony Jack controlled all the gambling, all the freaking bookies in town, basically all of them. If you tried to be a bookie in Detroit, you either ended up dead or kicking up to Tony. And Tony had guys like Al Hilf and Freddie Salem. One's a Jew, was a Lebanese. These guys were untouchable. That's where it comes in. We're like, oh, these guys, if you're not Italian, it's all bullshit, man. I tell you, these two guys, Al Hilf and Freddie Salem, had more juice and power than anybody in the streets of Detroit other than the administration, meaning the street boss and his brother, the consigliere, the underboss, and boss. After that, Al and Freddie were freaking top dogs, making millions, man. And they pushed bets over on my grandpa too. When their books get loaded and they can't balance, they push my grandpa. Loved sports, loved bet. He had 4 phones going in the living room, books going, and he'd be booking. They had these. My grandma helped them with the freaking books, man. She coded everything. Everything was coded. Every bet, money, and with who was all coded and documented. They had a warehouse in the warehouse, a room that was filled with these books. I remember saying, man, if they come in here and find this, we're cooked. The whole family's cooked. And they're like, it's all coded. You can't figure out. Only she knows the code. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. So anyways, Tony is starting to hang around, coming around a little bit. Because like I said, his daughter married my cousin. I see him a lot. Then there was a period, I don't see him for a while. I didn't even know he was in prison for like 7 years. And he pops back out. I'm like 14 years old. He starts coming around all the time, hanging out with my grandpa, talking sports and all bookie stuff. And then my grandpa's telling him, freaking Alonzo got arrested again. Alonzo got arrested. He got expelled from school. I got expelled from high school at 15 years old. I got completely expelled from the district. Couldn't go back to school at 15. There you go.
Is that Tony Giacalone, right?
That's how I remember him, too. That's him. Okay. He's a bad man, bro. An OG, triple OG. Even all his kids and grandsons are all gangsters, all OGs. But let me tell you what happened with him, man. The dude liked me. And the reason for that is he was with my grandpa all the time. And they're always saying, I'm sure he'd walk in and he'd talk in Italian, Sicilian. Then I hear freaking, how's Alonzo? I hear Alonzo and my ears would perk up. And my grandpa's like, he just went to jail again or just got out of jail. He's like, what now? He's like, this stuff. And usually petty stuff, not major. He's expelled from school. He's got busted selling steroids, blah, blah, blah. And Tony's looking at me. So he kind of likes me. When I come around, I'd see him and say, hey, Uncle Tony, how you doing? He's the one who taught me how to play poker. Him and my Uncle Nicky when I was real young. And 3 dice. He taught me the best hustle I ever had in my life was 3 dice. He taught me to hustle in 3 dice. He taught me this game. It's a Greek game. Holy crap, that made me so much freaking money. I go to any party, any pool hall, anywhere, bust out these dice and make $300 in like freaking 20 minutes. It was everywhere. That's how I got money. But anyways, he taught me that. So one day I get a call from my aunt, and I've told her on my channel, but my aunt calls and says, I'm actually, I did have a cell phone at the time, so it was, I don't know what it was, but I was only like maybe 19, 20 years old. And I remember I called my aunt back. I can't remember what kind of cell phone I had. It was a long time ago. But she called me. Maybe she did beat me. She could have beat me. And then I called her back. And I said, what's going on? She's like, they're picking on Anthony. These kids here are picking on Anthony, her son. And I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. So I jumped on my crotch rocket Ninja and drive freaking 110 miles an hour down I-94 to a neighborhood that I'm not from. This is Grosse Pointe, bunch of rich kids. I live in St. Clair Shores now. I was living with St. Clair Shores. Oh, no, I was with my grandparents now, but I kind of grown up in high school, but 4 or 5 years in St. Clair Shores from age 14 to like till I got busted and went to jail. So maybe 3 years. Now I'm with my grandparents, and I fly over there, and Tony Jack's there, and Anthony's there. He's got an ice pack on his nose. He got punched in the face. And I said, where they at? And she said, down the block, corner house in the back playing basketball. Dude, I went storming up that freaking night, a white beater on, well, a tank top, a red tank top on. I go walking up, and I said, which one of you motherfuckers put your hands on my cousin? And they all stopped, a bunch of them, like there's like 8 of them playing ball. I said it with a lot more force. I was like, which one of you fuckers put your hands on my cousin? I said, I'll kill one of you mother. And they're like, oh, what's up, Al, man? Anthony's your cousin? I said, yeah, motherfucker, that's my cousin. I said, you know my name? You know who I am? He said, and he's like, yeah, you're Gino's boy, man, and blah, blah, blah. Gino Bianchetti. I said, yeah, you must not know me well, motherfucker. I said, because if you knew me, you never put your hands on my cousin. So you put your hands, and they were like, no, it's not even like that, Al. We don't want no problems with you. We were playing basketball, kind of got a heated pushing match, a couple punches were thrown, but it's not even like that. We know Tony. We like Tony. We grew up with him. We live right there. Blah, blah, blah. All I'm saying is if one of you bitches touch my cousin again, I'll come back here and stop every one of you bitches. You got that? And they're all like, yeah, Al, no problem. I have no problem. I said, yeah. And I stormed out of there. I went back and I told Tony Jack's there too. I said, they won't bother you no more. I promise they won't bother you. Never. And Tony said for years, he's like, no, dude, they freaking rolled my dick after that. They don't want no smoke with you.
And I like to say one thing. Just so people know, this gentleman, we hear everything about who killed Jimmy Hoffa. The odds are this man killed Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah.
And
he's the number one suspect.
And he was the number one suspect. Everything ran through Detroit, and they had to go through Detroit to take Hoffa out. This guy was the top guy. That was his job. And the odds are that Tony Jack is the one that killed Jimmy Hoffa. You'll hear all these bullshit stories, but if you look at the reality, the chances are this guy did it.
I'll tell you. I'll talk to that in a minute. I will tell you my theory on that, and then I'll move on to the Hoffa. And let me finish telling you how I got involved with him. After I punked these kids out, maybe a couple of weeks later, and I've told this story too, but a lot of your listeners don't even know who I am and don't even watch my show, probably. Some of them, anyways. He gives me a call. And so he knows I'm a tough guy. He knows I just had broke my knuckle and got a surgery. Like I'm always fighting. My grandparents are bonding me out of jail for beating people up and blah, 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 blah. So I get a call at 7:00 in the morning one day, and it's Tony. He's like, hey, Alonzo, I need you to do a favor for me. I said, yeah, what's up? Anything, Tony? Because he said earlier here, a couple of days before, he said, make some money, man. Maybe you can do something for me. I said, yeah, call me anytime. Gave him my beeper number, or my home number and my beeper number. And he calls me. And he says, listen, man, he never said it was his Gumar. He said, a friend of mine, a girl, her ex showed up last night drunk, slapped her around, even slapped the kids around and passed out drunk. He's there. Can you handle this? He didn't say what to do or nothing. He said, can you handle this? I said, give me the address, man. I'm there. I'm on the way. It's 7:00 in the morning, man. I'm not even a morning person, bro. I like waking up and hang up. I get the address, write it down, hang up. I call my workout partner, Dario, who's a cousin too. I said, Dario, come on, we got to do some work. First thing Dario says is, do I need my piece? he knew. He said, do I need my piece? I'm like, nah, forget that. Bring a pool stick or something, man. He's like, all right, bet. I'm on my way. Boom, comes over. 5 minutes. He's there. Big muscle bound motherfucker. I said, bro, let me handle this. Just have my back. I want to handle this. So we drive to the house, and it was like a duplex house, big house on 12 Mile, and her apartment was like on the top floor. So I kind of sneak up the steps and I tap on the door, assuming that Tony said somebody's going to be coming. She opens the door and I'm like, "Where's he at?" She says, "He's passed out in the back, drunk. He's just passed out in the back." I said, "Look out." Come in there. You come creeping through the house real quietly. I tell her, put the kids in the other room. Put the kids in that bedroom. You don't want them to see what's going to happen. And we come on, and my boy did have a pool stick, by the way. And he screwed it in half, so it was a half pool stick, which he broke on the dude. And I freaking walked up to the dude. He's passed out. And I take my hand and go, boom, boom, boom on the wall. I said, "Wake up, motherfucker." And he kind of looks at me like, who the fuck is you? And I go, bang, I grab him by his hair. And I start pulling him out of the bed. He right away starts trying to fight. I had this big ass gold ring, huge nugget ring, huge. I mean, it's like it weighed an ounce. That's how big it was. Solid. It didn't nothing underneath. It wasn't hollow. It was huge. And I grabbed him by the hair, and he started trying to fight. Throw punches. I'm just like smashing his face in. The first punch is, and no, actually, what I did is I yanked him, and he's trying to fight, and then I slammed him against the wall by his throat. I said, "Motherfucker!" And I said, "You like to beat on women, motherfucker?" He's like, "Who the fuck did you get off me?" Bam! I splattered him. First shot. He drops down, and I wallop him a couple more times, but I did a lot of damage with that ring in the first couple punches. Dario, as I grabbed the dude by the hair, started dragging the dude down the hall, blood all over the place. He's yelling, "Man, who are you? Who are you?" Trying to hold my hand because I'm yanking his hair. Dario cracks him across the back, breaks the pool stick on him. And I said, "Motherfucker, I'm the boogeyman. I'm the guy who shows up when you put your hands on a woman." And that's what I said. And he's like, "Man, what are you doing? It's my freaking girl, man." I said, "Ain't your freaking girl, motherfucker. You slap around kids, women, and children, motherfucker, I'll kill you." So I drag him down, blood splatter everywhere, drag him down through the kitchen, out the back door, down the shelves. I got him by the hair, drag him out there. I said, "Now get the fuck out of here, man." And he's blood everywhere. It just splattered. His nose broken with a chunk out of it. And it ended up having a big chunk of flesh in my ring, stuck in my ring. And I let it dry up and I'd show it to my boys. I'm like, "Look at this guy's face still stuck in my ring." And so I said, "Get the fuck out of here." And he had this van. So he gets in the van and he's like got no shirt on. He's covered in blood. And I see him start reaching under the seat. I'm like, "Yo, what are you doing, bro?" And I reach down, grab his hand, pull it out. Guy's got a crowbar. I said, "Motherfucker, I'm split your head with this motherfucker. What the fuck you think you doing? Get the fuck out of here." He looks in the mirror and goes, "Man, look what you did to my face." I said, "Mother effer, the next time you put your hands on a woman, you'll need a surgeon to put your face back together. Now get the fuck out of here." I think I slapped him. Bang. And that was that. He pulled off. Well, the girl saw the whole thing and she called Tony and says, "Yeah, I don't know, that guy that you sent here was a freaking, he handled it." And I see her periodically over the years in a gas station, or she went to the adult ed school that I went to, and I bumped into her. She'd always come over and whisper, "Thank you for what you did." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's the right thing to do, man." I was a freaking punk, slapping around women. So after that, Tony realized that I was capable of violence, and I was a worker, and I wasn't afraid to get dirty, my hands dirty. So now he starts saying, "Listen, you want to work some of these poker games, man, work security at poker games." I'm like, "How much?" He's like, "You make a couple $100. And I realized the games go all night. They're like freaking 8 hours and stuff for $200. It kind of sucked, but I needed the money. So I wanted money. So now I'm doing poker games. I'm doing running errands. So lots of times he said, "Take this money to this guy across town, or give me an order. Tell this guy to meet this guy at this time here." And I do give an order. And sometimes he'd give me a couple $100. Periodically, he might hand me like $1,000. He's like, "Go." And then he starts having me get the runners, the guys that owe the bookies, and sometimes bookies that owe the mark, the bet. The bookie don't want to pay because the bookie wants the guy to keep betting so he can lose that money back that he won. And sometimes the guy's betting like, "Listen, I just want my money, man. You owe me $20,000. I want it." And the bookie starts avoiding him. And when they don't pay, that guy who may be connected, he calls a friend who calls Tony and says, "Hey, man, this freaking bookie ain't paying up." And of course, Tony gets to the bottom of it. He says, and the guy, if you don't act right, he'd call me up. I go to the athletic club. Tony's headquarters, the athletic club, right on 696 Southfield Freeway. And I go in there. We go for a walk and talk in the parking lot. Which, by the way, the FBI showed me a bunch of pictures of him and me in the parking lot walking around. They were asking, what are you doing out there? I'm like, "He's having a cigarette. He's trying to quit smoking." And so it's my uncle. So we just talk about, holiday stuff or whatever. And they're like, "Yeah, okay, sure, well." We're doing walk and talks in the parking lot all the time. And so he would tell me to go do this. And I go find the bookie and say, "Listen, mother effer, pay your mark, man. Dude, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Yeah, this guy owed money. He ain't paid forever." And then he wins. Now he wants the money right away. I said, "Listen, I said, Tony, right?" "Of course I know Tony." I'm like, "He sent me." And they always do this. As soon as I say, You know that dude called Tony, and Tony sent me, right? And the guy like sent Tony. I mean, these mother effers were terrified of Tony, terrified, as they should have been, as they should. And so Tony would, send word to these guys, and lots of times I would get paid. So I get $20,000 on a runner. Man, I might get $2,000, $3,000 on a good day. Sometimes I wouldn't get nothing, but Tony would take care of me later. So I was always running around, and then he'd say, "Go up to the track, hang out at the track. This guy, that guy, this guy, that guy. They got runners. Go find them, make a buck. Blah blah blah." A couple of times he wanted me to hurt a guy. Another time, this is what reminds me of John. And I was never a made guy. I knew I was never going to be a made guy. I was told when I was like 16, don't get your hopes up if you want to be up. Part of our thing is you're half-breed, you're defetto, defective. That means defective, defetto. So I really wasn't like that offended by it or nothing. Like, I'm a defender because I really didn't give a shit. Honestly, that's where I'm going with all this. I'm like, okay, I can't be in the full made member round, so I don't care. I'm just gonna hustle and get my money, bang on to chicks, do what I do, whatever. If they want me to use me, they use me. If they don't, they don't. I don't really care. But it was just a constant evolution of getting farther and further that life. And one day, and it made me think of John Panizzi. And I like John, nice freaking guy, really nice guy. But he should have never been a made dude. In New York, this is what happens a lot. They Mustang guys make them because, let's say a guy wants somebody killed, and he doesn't want to use this guy, that guy. He just says to this young wise guy who's been hanging out at the pool hall for a year or something, who's maybe hustling numbers and a little sports book, making a couple $100. He says, "Listen, man, I'm going to bring you into this thing of ours, make you a full made member, right? You want to do that? You'll be with us forever." And of course, the kid's like, "Yeah, oh yeah, of course." It's like, so they take him in and they give him the oath, make it real romantic, and say, "Now you're with us. Now you got to pay tribute to me every week. And if I tell you got to do something, you got to do it. You understand? If I give you an order, you got to do it." And he's like, "Yes, of course. All right, well, I need you to kill this freaking guy. This guy's pissed me off. Now you got to kill him, or we go beat him, or whatever." And then John Panizzi was like, that's where it hit him. Like, I got to kill the freaking guy. At one point, he told me that he had to. He told me that they issued an order to beat a guy, put him in the hospital. And it took them 6 weeks. They were following him, trying to set him up, trying to get him, trying to grab him, whatever. And in my mind, I'm like, 6 freaking weeks? Are you kidding me? I immediately remembered the story where Tony had me meet him at the club. We went for a walk. He says, "Listen, this guy, he's a mark, a square, whatever. He ain't paying one of our guys." And the guy was like Al Hilf's guy. So this guy pushes bets from Al Hilf. It was a big deal. He said, "I want you to send him a message, man. I want him in the hospital. You tell him I sent you." I said, "Okay, where's he at?" He said, "This is his business. It's downtown Detroit, right downtown. Got a black Jeep, Wrangler." I said, "Okay." The very next day, I went and scoped it out, looked at the guy's like rich routine. Came in every day at like 9 or 8 or whatever it was. I said, "Okay, I can get him right here, right in the street. Downtown Detroit." The next day, I parked over there. I got a crowbar. I was going to whack him with the crowbar. I was just going to walk up and crack him with the crowbar. I said, "Tony said, you got to pay up." But when I get out of the car to go after him, because I'm facing this way and his car's over there, Jeep, like I open the door and I just get out and I start like kind of speed walking towards the guy because he's about to get out of his car. And all of a sudden I trip on a sewer grate, the kind with the steam coming out. It was just like a movie. The steam coming out of the sewer grate, I freaking trip on that motherfucker, and I stumble forward and I hit the ground and like roll to my feet. And as I'm doing that, I'm realizing I don't have the crowbar because when I fell, I was like, "Holy crap, I've got to go." And just as I jumped to my feet, the guy, he was like a big burly guy with a black beard and black hair, but he kind of looked like a biker, but a clean cut biker with like a shirt and tie on, and burly fat guy with a black beard. And then he turns around and he looks at me. I fall on the ground in front of him, and he starts laughing. He says, "What's up, man? What happened to you?" Or something. And I said, I just walked up and said, "Hey, Tony says hi." And I just bust him in the face. He goes down. I start wailing this guy. He covers up. I'm just bam, 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 bam. The guy beat the guy so bad, he ended up, because he laughed at me. I said, "Give me your wallet, mother effer." And he's like, "Well," I said, "Give me your fucking wallet." And I open his wallet. I take all the money out of it. I said, "Give me that chain too." And I yanked the gold chain off his neck, snapped him. And I started kicking him. And he's so like, he's busted up, a lot of blood. He's like, "All right, man. All right, stop, man. Stop, man. I got enough. I'll pay. And I said, "Yeah, okay." I said, "You going to disrespect Tony like that?" He told Tony to fuck off is what he said. "Tell Tony, fuck you. I'll pay what I want." And so now this happens. And I'm kicking the shit out of him, and he actually climbs under the Jeep to get away. "All right, man, this is broad freaking daylight, man. Freaking 8 o'clock in the morning, downtown Detroit. There are people freaking like gathered on the sidewalk over there watching. Like, holy shit, man, that guy's beating the shit out of this dude." And anyway, so when I go back to report what happened to Tony, he already knew. Somehow either the guy called his bookie and said, "What are you freaking doing?" Blah blah blah. And anyways, this guy freaking put me in the hospital, man. Freaking, busted me all up, broke my nose, all kinds of stuff, and robbed me. And so Tony says, "Come on, we'll talk to you." I'm thinking he's gonna kind of congratulate me and pay me some money, which he did pay me. He said, this is what he said. It was funny. He said, "What's wrong with you, Alonzo? I send you to collect $1. You come back with $100. Why'd you put him in the hospital?" I said, "That's what you said." I think he disrespected you. He said he disrespected me. He said, "What did he do to disrespect you?" I'm like, he laughed at me. And he starts laughing. So Tony, the sociopath that he is, he starts laughing and thinks it's funny. Pulls out money, gives me some money. So moral of the story is, these guys that I'm talking about, these higher level administration mob guys, some capos and made guys, but really just a small nucleus of like 3 or 4 guys. They knew me. They were scared of me. I never kissed their ass. I didn't ride their dick. I mean, Tony Zarelli got mad at me one time because I was tried to extort a Polish business owner in Hamtramck. Turned out that business owner was already paying a protection tribute to Tony's crew. I didn't know that. I did a full-blown shakedown, and guys go in there and trash the place 2 times in a row and threaten to kill him, yada, yada. And then the 3rd time, I happen to be in there, and these guys come in and start trashing the place. I pull out a pistol and say, "What are you doing, man? It's a friend of mine. I'll kill you, bitch. I know who you are. I'll come back." And the kids, it's my play. I played the whole thing. I arranged it all. But in front of the owner sees me pull out a gun. Freaking, I slap one of them in the face, and I said, "I'll kill you, motherfucker. I know where you live, man. God, he leave this guy alone." The guy's, and I said, "What's that all about, man?" He's like, "Man, these guys have been coming here terrorizing me, freaking tearing my shit up, man, telling me that I owe money and blah, blah, blah." I said, "Listen, man, those guys won't bother you. Give me $500 a week. I can guarantee you nobody like that comes in here anymore. You'll be with us. Don't worry." He's like, "Okay, well, I already paid so-and-so." And I'm like, "Who's freaking so-and-so? I don't know who that is." Well, I got called in and got it reamed out an earful for that. And at this time, by the way, Tony Jack was mad at me because I was taking his poker players for my own game, instead of cutting every pot, I was cutting every 3rd pot, and that made bigger payouts. And when he found out, he was mad. And so he said, "Stop." I did it again. He said, "Man, you better stop." 3rd time, he didn't talk to me. He told my grandpa. My grandpa called me and said, "Listen, you got to stop. Tony's really mad." He didn't talk to me for like a year, which is bad. And then when this happened with Tony Zarelli, I get called in. I'm thinking I'm going there to get some dinner because it was a restaurant, Spaghetti Palace or whatever it was. And I go in, they're like, "Yeah, he's in the back." I go in the back, and all these freaking guys in there. I think it was Frank Bomarito, the guy, Tony's bodyguard, and Tony Jack, Tony Zarelli. And I said something I really don't even want to repeat, but it was really dumb. I didn't mean it against them, but basically I said, he says what he said. He said, "Alonzo, what's wrong with you, man? You and this freaking Pollock and Hamtramck. Oh, what's wrong with you, man? I'm just trying to make a buck." He says, he's already paying us." I said, "How do I know that?" He's like, you have to ask." I was like, "I got to ask every time I want to make a buck in this town? I got to ask you? I got to ask everybody?" He's like, "No, you ask your uncle Pete. That's who you work for, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "He would have told you." I'm like, "I didn't know, man. What the hell?" And he says, "Alonzo, you can't beat everybody." That's what he did. "You can't beat everybody with these. One of these days, someone comes with this." And that's when I get real serious. And this whole room, they closed me in this room. When I went in there, they shut the door and locked it. I heard it go clink. And Tony hit the thing on the door and it goes clank. Because I said something funny. I walked in just to be funny and see all these guys. And the fat bodyguard at the door, I laugh and I said, "What's up, Tony? This is the only thing stopping me from coming here to get you." Just laughing, being a wise guy kid, busting balls. This guy can stop me, man. You kidding me? And he shuts the door. Dude shuts the door. And they're all dead serious. All of them are just like, and the door lock, clack. I hear the clink. And then I get kind of like, "Oh, this ain't good." And then I say that. I said, "Well, listen, Tony, if somebody comes to me with one of these, I got one of these too, and I'm a good freaking shot. And I'm going to get that mother effer, and then I'm going to come through something." But then I realized what I said, how I said it would imply I meant towards him, which I didn't. I was trying to be a wise ass. And I kind of like, "Oh my God, I just said that really to the underboss." And I was like, and then Tony Giacalone came to my rescue and starts laughing. He goes, "Patu la para. Come on, man. What are you going to do?" He says, "Tony, this kid, he don't know any better. He didn't know. He didn't mean no harm. Did you? You didn't mean any harm, Alonzo?" I said, No, of course not. I didn't even know. How would I know?" He's like, "Well, Tony's like, we got to ask, man. And stop beating everybody up." Because another big problem I had was I went to Nikki's Pizza and got in a big fight, trashed the freaking place. And it was really like everybody knew, the whole freaking mob was laughing about it because I went in there. Some dude was like yelling at his girlfriend, threatening to beat up his girlfriend. And I stood up to, hey, man, that's a woman you're talking to. Have some respect. He said, F you. I said, F me. I walked over there and was bang. His boys come out of the bathroom. There's like 6 of them. They rushed me. My boys rushed him. We're throwing chairs, smashing up this freaking place. A really nice place in Greektown called Nicky's Pizza. And they all laughed. My grandpa had to give the guy $5,000. We did $5,000 in damage. And that was about the same time. And I think that's why Tony said, stop freaking beating everybody up. And anyways, the moral of this whole diatribe is what I'm trying to say is those guys, I didn't look at to them like there were some big shots. Oh my God, that's an underboss, or that guy's a made guy, or that's a capo. Tony's a street boss. Never did. I was just like, just uncles. I was desensitized to them. I was just around them. No big deal. When they wanted me to work, poker nights or casino nights and stuff, I'm like, yeah, cool. I can use the money. They got me jobs bouncing like their own mob guys. I can get any club or go anywhere I want. Freaking, carte blanche, VIP. Everybody knew that was a nice thing, but I didn't. It was nice to have like, I could walk up to the door and they knew who I was because I'd been in there with my Uncle Pete a bunch of times, strip clubs, restaurants, everywhere. And my Uncle Pete was always, hey, somebody, Pete, I somebody. And I'm with my nephew Alonzo, say hi. And so they all thought I was a Tocco. They're like, oh, my nephew Alonzo, they just assumed Alonzo Tocco. So wherever I went, everybody freaking knew me. But I didn't like say, oh, look at me. I'm a freaking wise guy. I got pull. I grabbed my civilian homeboys and be like, yo, let's hit that strip club. And I walk in. They would never charge cover. I usually get a couple rounds of drinks and dinner on the house. And it was nice. But I never was like, mob in the mob. I'm in the mob. Never. I never projected it to anybody. I had a crew of freaking hitters, bro. Dangerous, dope dealing, street thug, freaking get wise guys. And I never told them any business that was going on with my Uncle Pete and Tony and maybe a couple. My best friend Jay Battaglia, he did it. He knew. A few guys knew a little bit, but I didn't never mention it to these guys because that was how I was raised. I was raised to keep this business of ours. You don't share it with nobody. And the reason is, if you do, you'll be killed. And I've seen that happen too, bro. I've seen it happen. A guy who was a friend of mine ended up killed. What's that?
I was going to say, well, we've been going an hour and a half. We can go for a long time. So basically, I'm going to have to cut this off. But what I wanted to ask you before I do, I've been running your website down here, and you have quite a bit of apparel. And you also have 2 books that you have written. If you want to tell us something about that, because because you got 2.
Anyway, the other thing I just want to address with the mention of FBS, I don't even like calling him a fat bald Sicilian. It seems disrespectful. You can call himself that, but I'm not going to do it. Nothing against the freaking guy, but somebody said that he claims that I have inconsistencies in my stories sometimes, and I'll agree. I do. I mean, I'm only human. When I tell a freaking hour-long story off the cuff that I haven't told in years, maybe decades, and unrehearsed, I just record, blurt it out, and go. Yes, I'll mess up some details and mess up some things. That's kind of just human nature. I know that. I don't edit them. I don't go back and go, oh, I said that here, and at the end I said it that. I'm like, I don't care. I mean, it just is what it is. The general story is all the same, and outcome's the same. I just share how it is. And I also change some names, places, and events, times, because to protect myself and people involved. When there were some murders involved and other things, I'll just change it a little bit. So there may be that too. But so my books, To Be a King, Volume 1 and 2, they're about a Detroit Mafia family. Matter of fact, there's my book right here. This is actually the very first one, the very first volume, number 1, my first book ever of the book series. And To Be a King is about a fictional Detroit Mafia family. And a lot of people ask how much of my life, they read the book and they can see a lot of consistencies with similar to my life. And they're always like, I've been on Fox News and had Charlie Langdon ask me, he's like, this book, I mean, how much of it is based on your life? And I said, Charlie, you'll never know. There's some characters that are inspired by real characters. People ask like who Don Falcone is. I'd say it's a combination of Jack Tocco and my grandfather, kind of an amalgamation. And there are characters that are similar of the people I knew or even me, but the story is much, much bigger, much more grandiose. King Falcone is a young, wise guy, Sicilian. He's half-breed like me, Sicilian DeFeto. And his grandfather is trying to prune him to take over the family someday. But because he's a DeFeto, a lot of the family doesn't want him to do it because they want the throne. They want the bench. They want, So there's this fight for power and position. And when the Don goes to prison, and then there's a girl comes to town, a Sicilian mafia princess, and the two cousins, King, which his name is Omnio, which means king in Latin. It's just an old Latin word for king. That's why the book's called To Be a King. Well, his real name is Omnio, but they call him King. He sees this girl and he's like, wow, I mean, I want her, but his cousin already kind of claimed her. And him and his cousin had beef for years, kind of a strained beef relationship, never that close. But the cousin's sister, Pamela, who I have a cousin, Pamela, it was inspired by, is his favorite cousin, King. So he, at one point, she begs him to not kill her father and her brother, who is now the new boss and the underboss, the father and son. And so there's this big rift in the family, and the girl over the girl is a very romantic story. It's very big. At the end of the story is, he aggregates all these big mob bosses from all over the world, not just the country, the world, to pool their illicit money together into a big legitimate operation, which is essentially build a high roller fantasy island casino in the Caribbean with all these big shot billionaires and all the mob guys who invest it, and they back him. And because of that, he gets a bunch of juice in the streets and kind of muscles his way in and takes over. But they try to kill him and on and on and on. But anyways, there's a trick to it, because Johnny New York, man, Gumbari, we're called Protettore, means his protector. He's from New York. He has no loyalties to any of these Detroit guys. So the Don, after dude saves his life, the Don pulls him in, makes him swear an oath, just like an oath of Murta, but he swears it to protect King. He's like, I can't trust, any of these freaking guys. They're all going to try and kill him at some point. They're jealous of him. They know he's going to come up. They know he's going to take over. His crew loves him. Everybody loves him. But he needs a driver, a bodyguard, a Protettore. Would you be that? Would you be that? That means you can never rise up above that. But that's, your position of prestige in this family. And Johnny New York, his name is Giovanni Battaglia. He says, I'd be honored. So he takes an oath. Now that's freaking King's freaking bodyguard. He's just always with him, protecting him. But the thing is, Bonnie's got a secret. Something that happened 17 years previously back in New York comes back in full circle and sends everything crashing down. It's crazy, you have to read the book, but you'll enjoy it. Volume 1 or 2, they have perfect 5-star reviews. I got perfect reviews on both books. A lot of them, hundreds of them. So
and I seen that. I seen one book had like 700. I mean, you got a lot of reviews on your books.
Yeah, and it depends if you go into Goodread, if you go to Amazon, get whatever. Some have more than others, but people love them. They're all legitimate reviews. I've never asked anyone to give me a good review. I've just simply said, give me an honest review. If you enjoy the book, tell me what you thought. That's it. And so they're all real. Read the reviews. Stop and read. Spend 5 minutes and go through 5-10 any reviews. Just do the whole freaking thing, and you'll be shocked that everybody's saying, "Why isn't this this is the next Godfather? Why isn't this not a movie?" I'm like, "How is this not a movie?" And that's what people are saying. So, and yeah, I own the clothing line, Art Thing Apparel. We do everything from like shirts like I got here, to we got t-shirts and jacket. We do everything. Here's a jacket I actually sent in to Larry Mazza. It says Brooklyn on the back. It says Brooklyn Art Thing. It says Art Thing down the sleeve. They're pretty cool. The front, it'll have his name. He's going to have the life. I'm going to put the life on the side.
And what size do your jackets go up to?
Any size you want. I just ordered 10 leather coats. I got a bunch of leather coats sold. And he said, I might as well order 10. And they're badass, dude. They're better. And everything on the back says, like this shirt says Detroit Art Thing, because I'm from Detroit. But if you're from Chicago, or you're from New York, Brooklyn,
you can change the name. Okay.
Yeah, we sell it everywhere. All you when you order, you just pick your city, boom, and it's there. So it's on the back, it's on the front. We got 30 designed their tracksuits are freaking dope. In fact, I had a tracksuit up here, man. I got part of a tracksuit up here. Got the on the back, they're just like I said, this. Yeah. But then on the front, it's embroidered. And it'll say, your name on this side. This one, I've got to get Gunner on it. But hey, they're super cool. And then we got some new ones, a new design that really dope. So we got everything. We got duffel bags, hats, shirts, t-shirt, hoodies, everything. They're cool. I mean, it's not like you're going to project, I'm in the mob because I got this shirt. It's just take pride in where you're from. I'm from Detroit. I'm from Detroit. It's our thing. That's it. People don't even need to know the mob connotation. The people who might recognize it, understand it, go, oh, that's cool, a double entendre. But if you're from Detroit, I could be in Chicago or Miami walking down the street. Somebody sees the shirt, says Detroit Art Thing. If they're from Detroit, they're like, oh, hell yeah, man. It is our thing, I want to get one of them shirts. So,
okay, Gunner, we've been going an hour and a half. I got to call it an interview. I appreciate the fact of you coming on, and I appreciate the fact of what we covered. We covered quite a bit for an hour and a half, and
yeah, I'm sad we didn't get to talk about Sammy the Bull because I got a lot to say about that.
Oh, but we could do another one. I mean, I mean, we covered part of this, and I'm going to put this video out tomorrow. But I do appreciate you coming on, and I know that you got so much more to tell. And thank you so much. And I hope you're happier. I hope you're happier with this interview than the first one that we had.
Yeah, it's just fine. I mean, I just put a couple things on record, put it out, set a couple things straight. I'm not playing myself up to be some big shot. I'm just a guy that freaking did a bunch of time and was a bad guy. And now I write books and I live a nice, quiet life. I go fishing all the time. And I'm just trying to promote my books and my clothing line and make a honest living. So, but dude, we got to do a show about Sammy the Bull because that's a really interesting story about how I got involved with him and this whole business affair that I started with him. That kind of
I definitely want to talk about that, and I think that maybe we could set something up in a couple of days. We could do something, and then I could do put up a separate video on that.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't care. Okay. It's all exposure to me. It all helps me sell books and merch and bring people to my channel. My channel's Gunner Detroit. So you don't know what my channel is? It's Gunner Detroit on YouTube. I got
I've been running your channel underneath just so everybody could see it. I have been running that out for about a half hour. Before I put the other thing on.
That's my website. My YouTube channel is Gunner Detroit also.
Gunner Detroit. Okay.
I got like 285 shows. Some are interviews and some are the guests on the show. But most of them are me just telling freaking crazy ass stories from before I went to prison, or prison stories. I got a lot of prison stories in there too. So I mean, that's it. And I tell them off the cuff, unrehearsed. I just record them. Here you go. There's no editing, nothing like that. I don't got a crew doing nothing. I'm just telling the story. If you like them, you like them. A lot of people do. So
okay. Well, I'm gonna say goodbye. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
All right, man.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep.
Okay, people. That is Gunner. What I got to do is Gunner has a lot of things to say, so I just sit back and let him say it. And I appreciate him coming on and telling us. It's obvious the guy's had quite a life, and the family he comes from in the Toccos. And we wanted to clear up a few things about the grandfather and exactly how powerful he was in Detroit. And people have to understand Detroit had a very, very serious crime family. And actually, they're still active. But just like every other crime family, they're not what they used to be. But they are active. Okay, people, please subscribe to my show. I don't ask that much. I'm not going to forget it this time. And like the video. And everybody take care. And I appreciate you sitting down and watching this. Thank you.